What's going on, everybody? Happy Friday to you. This is Clint from the Die Hard MMA podcast and odds.com. This is the post weigh-in breakdown for UFC Vegas 17. Last card of the year, last opportunity to see these folks before they step on the scale and get into the cage on Saturday. And you know I love this show. This has been an absolute moneymaker for the entire 2020 since we started doing it. I absolutely love taking this final opportunity to look at the body language of these fighters. Nothing is ever a guarantee in sports betting, but this is as close as we can get to seeing what these fighters are going to look like when they actually compete in the octagon tomorrow. So we look very, very closely for any hint or sign of weakness to find an opportunity to make a little bit of cash. Let's dive straight on into this one. Unfortunately, we've lost a couple of fights due to COVID. The very first thing I want to mention is my boy Dalcha Lungiambula. His opponent Carl Robertson drops out due to COVID-related issues again. On the scale, made 185.5, and he looked phenomenal. We had plus 230 in our pocket for Dalcha Lungiambula, and I am so pissed off that that fight is not coming to fruition because the drop to 185 could not have gone better for him. He looked spectacular, and I fully believe that he was going to end up winning that fight utilizing his judo and his ground game. So, little peeved off about that. On top of it, it was going to be an excellent fight from an entertainment standpoint. First fight of the night, we've got Christos Giagos coming in here on short notice against Carlton Minus. Now, Christos Giagos came in at 159.5. They're doing a 160-pound catch weight because of the short notice. He looked solid. He looked really good on the scales, but not a whole lot to report there. Carlton Minus came in at 159. He looked in better shape than he usually does. This is a guy that's usually pretty soft. You could see some abs. You could see the outline of some muscles there on him. Coming from the Alaska regional scene, we all kind of make fun of them, but maybe he's one of the ones that is starting to take it seriously, starting to turn it around. Who knows? When they faced off here, Minus has a decent height and reach advantage here. I have not had time to look into his opponent, Christos Giagos. I know the guy off the top of my head, but I haven't done my due diligence as far as tape study goes. The opening line has Giagos as a whopping minus 330 favorite. You've got plus 270 to plus 250 on Carlton Minus, and honestly, at this point, it's a dogger pass spot for me. Christos Giagos is coming in on 2 days' notice. Looks like he's fighting up a weight class. Carlton Minus is in good shape, ready to go for a bounce-back fight that he has to get a win in his UFC career in order to keep his job. And like I said, he looks like he's in much better shape. He's going to enjoy a height and reach advantage. All things considered, I feel like this line is probably a little bit wide. Again, that's just a top of the head right off the bit. I'm probably not going to actually bet Carlton Minus because how could you? But that's the way that I would have to look if I was going to throw a little $10 flyer here on this fight card. Next up, we got Jimmy Flick and Cody Durden. This is the one that we were all really itching to see. Jimmy Flick came in at 125. No issues at all. Looked good. That's his home weight class. Didn't seem to have any type of an issue with the quick turnaround. He did take his good sweet damn time taking his pants off to get on the scale, though. It takes forever for me when I'm watching this thing live and you've got somebody that can't figure out how to get their sneakers out of their sweatpants. Cody Durden came in at 126, and he wore those damn sunglasses again. I'm telling you, every time people come in with sunglasses, they are immediately suspect. Something is usually wrong with them. They're trying to hide something. Rarely do you get someone who's doing it to look cool in the case of like a Tony Ferguson or something like that. Most of these people are usually hiding a little bit of something. So that already puts up a little red flag for me. But he looked pretty good. He didn't look bad on the scales. And when they did get in front of each other, it was a near identical face-off. Both guys look like they are geared up and ready to go. They're amped up to get in there and finally close out the show on this one. Lots of heat, lots of intensity between these two. Durden did end up taking the glasses off when they were face-to-face with each other, so that was a good sign in my opinion. Maybe he is one of the ones that just wants to look good on the scales. I originally leaned Cody Durden in this fight. I thought that his size and his wrestling and then his ability to strike was going to be able to win the day for him. I got plus 160 the first time it was booked, but now he's sitting around plus 125. The difference in value there is drastic in my opinion. I do think he still stands a decent shot to win the fight, but dropping to a new weight class for him and having to do that cut twice, I've talked about it all week. I can't play this one. I want to bet Cody Durden, I really do, but because of that quick turnaround, Jimmy Flick is going to be the guy who's more at home. He's used to taking short notice fights at this weight class. He is used to coming in with just a couple weeks to prepare and getting out after snapping somebody's neck, going deep into the third round. That's what this guy does. I don't know if Cody Durden is built for that. So my bet on Cody Durden was refunded. it has turned into a lean to Jimmy Flick. And I really am curious to see how this one turns out. I do think someone's going to end up getting finished. Whether it's Cody Durden landing a knockout on the chinny Jimmy Flick being the bigger man, or Jimmy Flick doing what he does and getting another submission, I think this one is probably going to end in the second round. Tefon Njoku came in at 186. Dude is absolutely built. We've been talking about the power this guy brings to the table. You can see it in his physicality. He was very slow and deliberate getting on the scale. Sometimes that can be a red flag, but I don't necessarily think it was in this case. Jimmy Pickett came in at 184.5. He was the first man to the scale, and he looked incredible. Pickett looks in great shape. Really lean, well-built, muscular, moved well. When they faced off, Pickett is the much taller man, and Tefon is the much thicker man. They ended up posing with each other for a nice little photo opportunity there on the scales. It was a good time. This is going to be a good, competitive, friendly fight, and I'm still not quite sure the way I want to go here. I'm probably going to end up just passing on this one. Tefon Njoku, I don't want to trust him at this 3-1 price tag. He's a minus 350, minus 400 favorite at this point, and I just think that's too much for a guy who's only got 4 professional fights. We're all sold on his power. We're all sold on how much of a killer this guy is. But Pickett, you have not quite gotten notice to him that he's supposed to lose this fight. He's coming in ready to go. This is a guy who's got way more experience. He's going to be taller. He's going to be longer, and he's got probably better technical striking. We don't know anything about Tefon's ground game. So if this fight extends out of the first round, it could get really hairy, and Pickett might end up being maybe an in-play opportunity if you've got live betting available to you. But I don't really want to touch this one pre-flop. I wouldn't hate a dog or pass type of situation here just because of all the questions around Njoku. But at the same time, my gut tells me this kid is the truth, and the UFC wouldn't be pushing him this hard if he didn't have the opportunity to come in and do exactly what we're expecting him to do. So probably another pass in my case. Maybe an over 1.5 look. Gillian Robertson taking on Taila Santos. We've got my girl Gillian came in at 125. She looked on point on the scales. She was smiling big under her mask. You can always tell by the eyes. They crinkle up when they're smiling under the mask. She gave her usual, one arm flick. I got to stop doing that. Gillian's one arm flicks is much more impressive than mine is. I got to hit the gym starting January. We've got Taila Santos who came in at 126. She also looked good on the scale. Really nothing to report though. It was a very quick weigh-in. She got on, she got off. Nothing really happening there. When they faced off, Gillian got up in Talia's face. I can see the intensity in her when this fight is getting rolling here. It looks like she's really chomping at the bit to get in there and hurt somebody after her last fight fell apart. Gillian seems like the thicker fighter. Taila is a little bit leaner and maybe has like a ½ inch of height on her. They sized up really well with one another. But I like my spot here on Gillian. I did end up pulling the trigger, and I know, it's the simp bet of the week, but I really think that her grappling is going to make the difference here. She is the thicker fighter. I think she's going to be the stronger fighter, and if she can basically just pin Taila up against the fence, or if she can take advantage of the kicks or the knees that are being thrown at her and get this fight on the floor, she should be able to wet blanket smother Taila Santos, and then maybe even get some kind of a late finish after Taila Santos gasses out. Santos is a girl with a whole lot of muscle, and she's not much of a grappler as far as the wrestling is concerned, so if Gillian takes her down and she's forced to work hard, she's forced to get back up, this could be a situation where we see a late finish because she just runs out of gas after not being able to do what she's used to, which is striking for a 15-minute fight. Deron Winn taking on Antonio Arroyo. This is a weird one. So we've got a catch weight for this one. Winn comes in at 194.5, and he looks like a T-Rex up there when he flexed with this extra weight on him. He's got the stubbiest little arms. His broad chest, though, is like twice the size it should be. This guy's got a weird body frame. Antonio Arroyo comes in at 194, and he looked really dang good. This guy looks fantastic, lean, long, height and reach advantage. It looks like these guys are 2 weight classes apart. When they faced off, it reminded me of when Stefan Struve faced Tai Tuivasa. There's a foot of difference in height between these guys. It's going to be very strange to see them in the cage on Saturday. And honestly, I'm spooked because this is a spot where Deron Winn, he's shown nothing but durability so far in his career. He's shown nothing but, his ability to take people down has been solid. Antonio Arroyo just looks too easy. It looks like sitting here at minus 155, minus 160. Why are we not hammering Antonio Arroyo? And I see a lot of love for Antonio Arroyo out there in the betting public, but this is a guy in Deron Winn who's got that wrestling advantage. And even at the catch weight, even at the size disadvantage, maybe he's got more gas in the tank. Maybe he's like Daniel Cormier, where we thought he was small at 205, and then he moves up to heavyweight and takes the title. Like, there could be a situation like that for my guy Deron Winn. I love fading this guy. I do not like betting on him, but I'm extremely tempted to say that this is a dog or pass situation now that I've come around here on Saturday. Like I said, my initial lean was to Antonio Arroyo, but the confidence that Winn was showing when he was facing off against a much, much larger man on the scales also has me a little bit shook. And styles make fights, man. Antonio Arroyo, he doesn't have the boxing that a guy like Gerald Meerschaert had, and that's how Gerald Meerschaert was able to defend the takedowns and stay at bay and stay at distance, was using the boxing, his height, his reach, his length. But Antonio Arroyo is more a kicker than he is a puncher, and that will give the opportunity for Winn to land takedowns that maybe he otherwise wouldn't. So I'm not touching this fight with a 10-foot pole. We don't have to bet every single fight. If you must bet on this one, maybe take a little flyer on Winn by decision, because if he does get some takedowns, there's a chance that Arroyo gasses out. And if Arroyo gasses out, he's just going to smother him for the last 2 rounds of this fight. I know a lot of people are talking about Arroyo by KO being off, but I honestly think he's going to have a hard time landing the shot that he needs to actually finish the fight and close the show, even though that is a nice value line. There's a lot of plus next to Arroyo by knockout this week. Sijara Eubanks taking on Peani Khanzad. Now, Eubanks came in at 136, took forever on the scales to get the call. She ended up needing the box of shame. You all know that when a fighter requires the box of shame, that is a big dollar sign to me. Usually when they come in like that, they've struggled a little bit to make the weight. They have a hard time closing that last pound or two to get on the scales at the right weight class. And Sijara looked thick. She looked really, really muscular this time out. I mean, I could tell in her arms she's been putting in some extra work. Peani Khanzad came in at 135.5. She looked really good. She moved well, lots of energy. I like to see that as well. When they faced off, good eye contact, very intense, also respectful after the face-off was over, but it was a solid stare down from both women. This is a spot where, again, you're going to hear me say this constantly, I feel like this is a dog or pass situation. I cannot trust Sijara Eubanks with my money. She's about a -160, -165 favorite at this point. You can get +140 or +130 on Peani Khanzad out there, and that's the way that I would have to look. I'm very tempted. I've been wanting to bet Peani Khanzad basically since the start of the week. I think she's the better striker. I think her volume striking is going to play a part, but with how thick Sijara Eubanks came in at weight, I'm concerned about her basically being able to just muscle and grind Khanzad on the floor. Now, Peani Khanzad's, her grappling, her stand-up game, it's come a long way. So if she's able to defend those takedowns, if she's able to continue getting up, she's going to have more volume than Sarge on the feet, and she should basically run away with the decision. We have seen in the UFC the last couple of weeks at the Apex, these judges really don't score for grappling. So if you get someone to the floor and you do essentially nothing with that takedown, they are not giving you the credit that you necessarily deserve for that takedown in a mixed martial arts fight. With that said, Sijara Eubanks may not be able to do much of anything. If she gets this fight to the floor, there's an outside shot that she doesn't land a whole lot of ground and pound because she's fighting to keep this girl on the ground. There's an outside shot that she doesn't get a submission because Peani Khanzad is solid enough to get back to her feet and remain safe. So if it's just takedowns, Khanzad has a very, very live opportunity to run away with this fight in the striking realm. So that one may be one that I end up pulling the trigger on. They both looked good on the scales. The slight near miss from Sijara Eubanks, I think, is a nod in the direction of Khanzad, and that's the way that I was already leaning. Anthony Showtime Pettis taking on Alex Morono. Pettis came in at 170, looked good on the scales. I mean, we all know he's been at 155 forever, so making 170 is not a problem for Showtime. He does look thicker whenever he's at 170, though. Much, much healthier for him. Morono came in at 170.5. He looked good, no issues. This is a guy who's never really all that physically impressive. He's not the brick shit houses that we're used to seeing in the UFC. He's a little bit leaner, but you could tell when they faced off, Morono is the natural 170-pounder. He's not solid muscle or anything like that, but he's got a decent little size advantage on Anthony Pettis, and he could tell from his last fight where he basically went to the grappling for the first time in forever. He may have turned a page in his UFC career here and may actually put that wrestling and black belt to work. And if he does, we've seen that be a way that Anthony Pettis has lost fights a lot in the past. Now, I messed up on this line. I went hard on Alex Morono early. As soon as this line dropped, I felt like it was off. I love the opportunity to fade Anthony Pettis here. Changing of the guard, in my opinion. I think he is due to be dropped out of the UFC, and this is the last fight on his career, or I'm sorry, on his contract with the UFC. So you've got Alex Morono sitting at about plus 190 at this point. I got plus 160. I messed up the line movement. I've got 2 units on the underdog here, Alex Morono. I see a lot of confidence out there in Anthony Pettis, and I just don't see it. Now, he can pull the Showtime kick out of his back pocket. He can leap off the cage and do something crazy. He can always snatch an armbar from guard. Dude's explosive. He's dangerous. We know that. But I think he's knocking on the downside of his career. I think he's getting towards the end, and we're not seeing those spectacular finishes, those spectacular athletic displays anymore. It's just not something that Anthony Pettis does on a regular basis the way he used to. Because of that, I think the tough and gritty, more volume-oriented Alex Morono is going to bring the fight to him. And whether he mixes up the striking with the grappling and takes Pettis down or not, whether he ends up making Pettis break, just being the bigger man in there and hitting him harder for longer, there's an opportunity for Alex Morono to finish this fight. I'm probably going to be sprinkling that Alex Morono round 3 prop because we have seen Anthony Pettis look for a way out. We have seen him look to quit, and especially if Morono decides to engage in the grappling here, tire Pettis out, put it on him late, we could see a referee saving TKO or a potential opportunity for Pettis to be looking for the door. I'm big on Morono in this spot. I think there's a lot of value here as an underdog. This is not a post-weigh-in read. I've been on him the entire week. Neither guy really did anything on the scales that would lead me to be either more for or more against my initial read. So I'm sticking to my guns here on Morono. Next up, we've got Marcin Tybura taking on Greg Hardy, the big boys. We've got Tybura, who came in at 255. This guy's been fluctuating a lot in weight from like 240 to 265 since COVID started. You never really know what you're going to get from him. He looked a little flabbier than usual to me, which is interesting because he came in about 10 pounds lighter than the last time that we saw him. So it seems like, I don't know. I don't like his body type here. I didn't see that he put in work for this particular fight. He's never an impressive physical specimen or anything like that, but he definitely didn't look the part here this Friday. Greg Hardy came in at 266. This is a guy that tips the absolute scales at heavyweight. That's the maximum that you're allowed to weigh. That's the 1 pound allowance at 265. He looked pretty solid on the scales, and he did a nice little dance after he made weight. You know, he's always got that energy up there. It was a respectful face-off. They kept their distance, but Marcin Tybura is a decent bit bigger than Greg Hardy. Again, this is a spot where my gut is telling me that Greg Hardy is going to land a knockout in this fight. We've seen Tybura get knocked out by power punchers before, but I'm not 1,000% sold that Hardy is the caliber of power puncher that the previous opponents that knocked out Tybura are. So because of that, there's an outside shot that Marcin Tybura is able to stay safe, and if he can weather that early storm, if he can survive the first couple of big shots, the longer this fight extends, the more that asthma kicks in for Greg Hardy, and we know that Tybura is just a cardio machine at heavyweight. This guy never slows down. He's got good footwork. He's constantly circling, making his opponents work and move, and then when he has the opportunity to, he puts them on their back. So if Greg Hardy gets tired, if he slows down even a little bit, he could end up under Marcin Tybura, and that would just be an awful situation for him. I again think that this is a bit of a dogger pass spot. Now, it's nearly a pick'em line. Greg Hardy is minus 125. Tybura is plus 100 or plus 105, but I'm not putting anything on this one. Like I said, there's something, I can't put my finger on it. Something tells me that Greg Hardy is going to get that knockout on Saturday, but I don't want to lay minus 125 to find out, because if he doesn't get that knockout on Saturday, then this thing is going to be all Tybura for the remaining 13 minutes of this fight, and there's a chance that Tybura could even submit him later on if he's able to establish a dominant top position. So Tybura round 3, maybe we go back to a little sprinkle there. I think there's a lot of round 3 sprinkle opportunities this weekend, actually. A lot of these fights I feel like are going to be hitting the overs and then finishing before the judges' scorecards. But we'll see how that plays out. Marlon Moraes taking on Rob Font. Magic Marlon came in at 135.5. He looked fantastic on the scales. This is another guy that's built extremely well. He's always muscular, always looking good, but he looked a little extra good this time around. I think he's really motivated to get in there and get a win. Listening to the interviews, listening to him talk, he's been talking this whole week about how he's not a loser, and even though he's coming off of a couple losses, he doesn't feel like he's a loser. I think he's doing an Anthony Smith here, and he wants to get a quick turnaround, get that taste out of his mouth for a loss, but he looked really confident for a guy coming off of 2 losses up there on the scale. Rob Font came in at 136, and he was the last person to weigh in today. He did look okay. There weren't any issues, but I wasn't overly impressed either. And then when they faced off, it was respectful, but Marlon looked extremely confident, and these guys sized up really, really well. Marlon Moraes is usually kind of a smaller guy for the division, and I thought Rob Font was going to look much, much larger than him, but they actually look like they belong on the same page here. So this is another spot very, very similar to the Greg Hardy situation where I'm not laying minus 150 with Magic Marlon Moraes. If he doesn't get the finish early, then this fight goes late, and if it goes late, Rob Font probably takes over on volume. I don't like that. This is probably a dog or pass betting spot just because of the questions surrounding Marlon Moraes as well, because of his chin. He's been finished in his last couple of fights, and we know as soon as round 2 rolls around, he's gonna take a dump. He's gonna slow down drastically, and that provides a lot of opportunity for Rob Font to win the fight. But again, something tells me that Marlon Moraes is going to turn back the clock a little bit here. He's taking a step down in competition. Rob Font is not a guy that I see streaking towards the top of the division, becoming a title contender, really going for it. So because of that, this may be enough of a step down for Magic Marlon Moraes to get the job done. And I know that Rob Font is a guy that can be taken down. He's got a couple submission losses on his record. This could be a club and sub type of situation. This could be a spot where Marlon Moraes actually engages in the grappling, something that he rarely ever does. And if he does do that, he's got a wicked submission game on him. And I think he could absolutely put away Rob Font on the floor. And that submission prop is like 6.5 to 1. So that might be an option, because I'm definitely not laying that minus 150 on Marlon Moraes. And you can't expect this guy to go 15 minutes and actually win a fight. He goes to a split every single time he's in a fight that goes to the cards. It's always a split decision, a very close fight. And I think he knows that. So I think there's an opportunity for him to come out hard here and maybe put away Rob Font and remind us just who Marlon Moraes is. But I hate the price tag. So good luck if you end up betting on that one. Another one that unfortunately I'm just not touching. Should be fun though. Michel Pereira taking on Khaos Kalen Williams. This fight is going to be fantastic forever how long it lasts. Michel Pereira came in at 170 pounds, and this dude is in stupid good shape. I mean, you can see every single vein, every single striation of muscle in his body. He cuts down to 170, and he's just a big, big, jacked guy. I have no idea how he makes that weight limit. Now, he did wear the sunglasses to the face-off, but I put him in the category of guys that's trying to have fun, be a showman, look cool, be entertaining, so I'm not overly concerned with him wearing the sunglasses at the weigh-in, even though I hate it. Khaos Kalen Williams came in at 169.5. He gave a big flex, and boy, was he giving crazy eyes every step of the way. I love the attitude, the chip on the shoulder of Khaos Williams that he brings to every single fight. When they faced off, Michel Pereira did this, like he was breakdancing up to his opponent. He was like doing the backwards worm and like hopped up, showing off his athleticism. Then they got into each other's faces, and it was intense. Khaos did not blink. Michel is bigger than Khaos is. He's going to have a height advantage. However, Khaos has a nice little 4-inch reach advantage, which I think is going to factor here. And it was just an intense, non-blinking stare down for these two guys. This is going to be one hell of a fight. And I've already said it. I'm betting Khaos Williams until I have a drastic reason not to. This guy has shown nothing but improvements. His power is always something that can close out the show. Getting him as a plus 100 underdog, plus 105 in some situations, I think that's the way to go. Michel Pereira, maybe he comes in and he's more tame. Maybe he comes in and he uses his high fight IQ and he tries to get this thing to the ground. Maybe he uses that size advantage and grinds out Khaos Williams. But until I see Khaos lose in that kind of a fashion, I'm not going to get off him. You can only ride the train, the hype train. You can only cash that ticket one streak until it's broken. So I'm going to ride it until it breaks. If that's Saturday, you got me, bookies, but I'm going to go ahead and play Khaos Kalen Williams. I also think there's some value to be had on Khaos by decision. Because of what he's been doing, coming in here, knocking everybody's heads off in about 30 seconds every single time he steps foot in the UFC, Everyone thinks he's going to win by knockout. Everyone thinks he's a knockout or bust type of guy. But I think he's going to be able to use that reach advantage. I think he'll be able to keep the distance and actually be the more sophisticated striker of the two. And actually, there's a decent chance that this thing goes to decision because Pereira's only been knocked out once in his entire career. So I don't know that knockout's going to materialize. It's got an opportunity to, obviously, because of the death touch of Khaos Williams. But if it doesn't, if those first two knockouts were maybe a little bit of special circumstances where his opponents were running into his fist, then there's a chance this thing goes late. And if it goes late, getting 6-1 on Khaos Williams to win this thing on the judges' scorecards, landing the bigger, harder shots, maybe having more volume, I like that. I like that a lot. Co-main event time, Jose Aldo coming in here against Marlon Chito Vera. Now, you all know I've got a position on this one already. I took Marlon Vera at plus 145 earlier in the week when that was widely available. The line is closed a little bit now. We've got Jose Aldo about minus 150, minus 155. You can see Marlon Vera anywhere from plus 110 to plus 130, depending on the book that you've got available to you. Jose Aldo came in at 136, and he looked like Skeletor. Now, this is exactly what we do this show for, folks. He was blinking rapidly. You could see the exhaustion in his eyes. He was breathing heavily. He looked sucked out up there. And then when he got off the stage, his balance was off. He stumbled getting off that last step. We know Jose Aldo is a big, big dude, and there was talks about him going up to 155 later in his career, as opposed to going down to 135. And making these drastic cuts, I think, is going to take its toll on him. It's just a matter of time. When is that going to take place? On top of that, he's coming off a life-changing beating from Peter Yan in his losing title fight the last time out. Marlon Vera came in at 135, and he was just relaxed, cool cucumber, blowing kisses to the lady that does the weigh-ins. I mean, he was all about it. When they got in there and faced off, they size up really well. I know Jose Aldo, like I said, he's a big guy. He's a former 145er that we thought was going up instead of down. So he has size at 135. But there's very few people at 135 that can match the physicality and strength of Marlon Chito Vera. And the fact that they sized up the way that they did, I like the dog here. I like the younger man. I like the guy who's going to have essentially every advantage except for the experience edge in this spot. And especially since we have durability questions surrounding Aldo at this point, how many times can he take these beatings? I know a lot of people are content to say, well, he always comes back fine. He gets knocked out. The next time we see him, he looks great. Like, he just keeps doing that. You can't keep doing that in combat sports, though. Eventually, the clock runs out on you. Eventually, that damage, that wear and tear on your body will catch up to you. And I think it already has to some extent. And I think we see the culmination of that on Saturday. I'm already on Marlon Chito Vera. And based on what I saw from Jose Aldo on the scale, I am extremely tempted to add another unit on him at plus 125. I think that Marlon Vera is the side to play here. I think this is a very much dog or pass situation. If you're betting on Aldo, good luck to you. But I think Marlon Vera is another perfect opportunity to sprinkle that round 3 finish prop, because if Jose Aldo looks to go power for power against a kid like Marlon Vera, he's going to be on the wrong end of age in that situation. We haven't seen anybody be able to finish Marlon Vera. Like I said before, this guy is made of absolute steel. I don't think Jose Aldo's made of steel anymore. So if they go shot for shot, I think Vera's going to end up finishing this fight. I think he's going to do it late. We know Jose Aldo can make it 15 minutes, and usually his downfall has been in the 4th and 5th rounds in his title fights. But again, eventually that's going to end. Eventually that's going to start to tip a little bit sooner. And coming off of the very awful beating he took from Peter Yan, you got to wonder how much his heart is left. You got to wonder if maybe he's going to crack just a little bit sooner. So if Vera is able to turn the heat up in round 2 and in round 3, potentially Aldo crumbles before the end of this fight. And if he doesn't, I think Marlon Vera is in a good position to actually win a decision throughout this fight. But I do think he also has the opportunity to finish. Getting plus money on the guy that I think is the outright winner here, I'll take it every single time, and I might be doubling down. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson came in at 170 pounds, looked extremely good, always happy. This guy's smiling. Wonderboy is the nicest man in MMA today for a reason, and he's got fans for it. He just is always in a good mood, and I love the energy he brings. Geoff Neill came in at 171, absolutely shredded. This guy looks great, and he's been the dark horse of the division for a long, long time. As many of you know, I got in on Geoff Neill a little bit earlier. I got him at plus 100, I believe, even money on the now favorite Geoff Neill. He's about minus minus 125 in this spot. I can see the argument for taking plus money on Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Again, the experience edge, the title fight, experience. That's the kind of thing that you want to take advantage of. But I think Neal is I think it's his time. I think he's headed for the title. I think he's been headed for the title for a long time. And Thompson is getting older. He's 37 years old now. We've seen him get clipped. We've seen him get rocked. And Neal has so much explosive power that it's unreal. He puts guys away violently. And if he clips Stephen Thompson, I don't think Thompson's going to be able to weasel his way out of that one, because Neal has the technical striking to back up that power and the explosiveness and speed to close the show after he lands a big shot or wobbles Stephen Thompson. I think this one goes under if they still have the total set at 4.5 for you, whether it's Neal gassing out and Thompson taking advantage or Neal landing the bomb. I think he's going to. I don't think this thing gets to the judges' scorecards. And I'm on the Neal side of things. Even at minus 125, I still think that he's the winner of this fight. So that's you're missing the value there. But if you want the winner, in my opinion, I believe it's going to be Geoff Neill, and I wouldn't hate laying minus 125 on him. It was good face-off, very friendly. Height advantage for Stephen Thompson, not something I'm overly concerned with. I know I talk about the height and reach advantage being an issue when it comes to MMA. Usually you want that guy, but I think the reach advantage of Neal being near comparable is going to help. And then the youth, the speed, the athleticism of Neal being able to close that gap, I think is going to be something that we see play as well. That's the post-weigh-in show, folks. The one big, strong, hard read that I had was going to be Marlon Chito Vera, and that's a fight that I was already on, so not a lot of extra opportunity there. We've got some really, really close fights on this one, so I hope that this helped you out. I wish you good luck on Saturday. Everybody stay positive. Let's try and make some cash one more time before the holidays. Good luck, everybody. Enjoy your weekend, and let's roll.